Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. I'm excited to be here. My name is Devin Sears. I'm joined by my friend and coworker, Chris Lambiazzi, and we are talking today about building your brand with WordPress. We work with a lot of people that are building their website on WordPress, and sometimes we've heard that WordPress is supposed to be just for blogging. We're here today to tell you that's not the case. You can build a brand with the WordPress website, and we're going to walk you through how to do that and what that means. And before we get into the content today, though, as I mentioned, we're joined by our Senior Director of Product Marketing, Chris Lambo, as we affectionately call him. And I am Devin Sears, the Senior Field Marketing Manager. I will be your host today. I'll be off camera for most of the webinar, as I'm going to be answering the chat and the Q&A. And you don't need to watch me watch my screen as the chat and questions come in. But I'll be here answering questions in chat. So to first a few housekeeping items. If you can hear us, find the chat and let us know where you're tuning in from. We love to hear where everyone is tuning in from around the world. And if you can't hear us, try to find the unmute there. Sometimes if you're tuning in from mobile, there's something where you have to turn on the audio for the stream. So make sure you find that and turn that on. If you have questions, there is a designated Q&A tab, so you can ask the questions in there. I'll do my best to answer the questions throughout the course of the webinar. If there are questions that I can't answer, I will hold those for the end, where we will be having a live Q&A with Lambo at the end of this webinar. The question that we always get, yes, this will be recorded, and yes, we will be sending out a copy of the recording in the next 24 to 48 hours. So if you're having any issues, technical issues, the best thing to do is just restart your browser and to try to rejoin. That solves 99% of them. Anything beyond that, message me in the chat. If it's something that's happening to everyone, then we will do our best to resolve it as quickly as possible. So let's talk a little bit about what we'll be covering today. As I mentioned before, we feel like WordPress can be used for building a brand on the internet. It's not just about blogging. So first, we're going to be talking about understanding your brand identity, things that you can do to build your brand identity, what goes into that. Then we're going to be going into WordPress best practices for building your brand, some things that are specific to the WordPress platform that can help you get your brand off the ground. And then we're going to be going into search engine optimization, or SEO, and how WordPress can help you improve your ranking on search engine results page. And then we're going to go into marketing your brand with WordPress, different tools and tricks that you can do to help drive traffic to your website once you've established your brand. And then we're going to finish off with maintaining your WordPress website. Absolutely critical. Once you've built a brand, you want to protect it, you want to maintain it. So we're going to touch on a couple things you can do to make sure that your brand and your website is safe. So enough from me. I'll turn the time over to Chris. Chris, take it away. The stage is yours.
Thanks, Devin. Yeah, as we sort of discussed, it's, a lot of people believe that WordPress is just blogging, and the thing is, it's not. It's obviously, you can build a website with it, you can build a store with it, all sorts of things. But I think as we talk about what does it mean to really build a brand, we need to ask ourselves a very simple question, which is essentially, what is a brand? A lot of people seem to think like, oh, I have to be selling a product. By selling a product, now having a brand makes a lot more sense. It is more valuable to my, let's say, company or my business or anything along those lines if I am selling a product. That's not always true. And the reason why I say this is because a brand is nothing more than sort of an intangible, although valuable asset that distinguishes you. It could be a product, it could be a company, it could be a person, can have a personal brand. And in that regard, they're sort of selling their personality, if you will. If you're a lifestyle blogger, things along those lines, people come back for viewing, or they come back to your blog because they're interested in what you have to say, or they're interested in the way that you say it. And so in all of these sort of ways, an actual physical product is not necessarily needed to establish a brand. All you're really trying to do is separate yourself from the competition. How are you perceived by your consumer in a world where perhaps there's someone doing something similar to you? Is the perception of your consumer adding value to what it is that you are offering? If the answer there is yes, then you are beginning to develop a brand identity. And we'll get into it in a little bit here, but having a brand identity has some long tail benefits to growing a business, of course, selling more products, of course, or just simply getting more subscribers or more viewers or whatever it is your end goal is. Now, there's some key components to any brand. Of course, there's the visual design. There is the positioning, and we'll talk about what positioning means here in a second. There's, of course, the packaging, right? Again, we can kind of talk about packaging here in a second, but essentially, you may be selling the exact same thing as someone else, but you've packaged it a little bit differently. And as a result, it feels a little bit different to your customer. There's naturally messaging and advertising. This is that classic, what is your slogan? What is the jingle that you hear? All that kind of good stuff. There is your logo. There's some logos here on this slide that I think we all recognize pretty easily. Your logo is an extension of your brand, but it is not the entirety of your brand. But if you can make it memorable, you're definitely going down the right track. And then there is pricing. You'll notice that there is an asterisk on pricing. We'll probably talk about this a little bit later also, but pricing is a difficult thing to simply associate with building a brand, because unless your brand is truly rooted in being a value provider, the lowest, the most affordable option, I struggle with always anchoring on pricing as a component of branding. Pricing has many use cases. It is a tool for many things, and to immediately anchor it to branding feels a little disingenuous. It has many more practical uses than just what is your brand about. So let's go into that. Essentially, why even have a brand identity? What does it matter, right? Essentially, what you're trying to accomplish two things with brand identity. Who are you? And what is the perception of who you are, whether that's positive or negative? How your brand is perceived will ultimately impact your profitability, right? So again, regardless if you're selling a product or you're just trying to get more viewers and more people engaged behind your cause, I use the term profitability as, are you accomplishing your goal at a growth rate, right? The other thing you're trying to achieve here is essentially consumer recognition. How memorable are you, right? How memorable you are will determine whether or not consumers come back or to tell others to use your product, your services, to watch your videos, things along those lines. Recall and recognition, I would say these two things, perception, recall, recognition, I'm putting them together, all go into ultimately what is brand equity. Brand equity refers to the value that a company or service or person gains from its name recognition when compared to a generic equivalent. And what that really means is, if there's someone out there doing the exact same thing you're doing, talking about the exact same thing that you're talking about, if you were to establish a brand equity, if you were recognizable, if recall was strong, if your perception was positive, there is a likelihood that though there is someone else out there doing the same thing that you are, you will still begin to attract more and more than the, let's say, generic equivalent. And it's because you have established a brand identity, which has led to your brand equity, which ultimately means you can quote unquote sell at a premium because you have a strong brand. People know you. They want to be part of it. They want to be associated with your brand, right? So brand equity, this comes back to sort of the intangibility of what is the value of a brand. It is really in the equity of your name being known. Now, how do we define a brand identity in order to get to a brand equity? I'm a product marketer, so I will almost always start with a positioning statement. It is to me the core of building a company, the core of going to market, the core of anything is essentially can be distilled down into, what is your positioning? Who is this for, right? What are you selling? What is the benefit to them? So I, in this particular case, would employ the classic methodology of positioning, which is a for, who, benefit, unlike statement. And an example of this, and this is just sort of a silly example that I came up with, but it's like, for people with anxious dogs who would like to comfort their dogs during stressful events like thunderstorms. Thunder Coats provides a contoured wearable coat for your dog that helps them feel safe and secure in stressful situations. Unlike other companies, Thunder Coats comes with a variety of customizable sizes, colors, materials, and includes our patented quick click technology for easy application and removal. That's a lot of words. But the thing is that really your brand, or is that really what you're offering to the market? And the answer is that's really what you're offering to the market, but it is the start of what your brand could be about, right? your brand and your positioning now start to take form as you start to think about, okay, what are the nuances? How am I really different from my competitors? Is my difference rooted in the quick click technology? Is it rooted in the product? Or is it rooted in perhaps the look and feel? Am I a more fun? Should I take a more fun approach to this product that I'm selling, to this solution, to this problem that I am selling? Should I take a more serious approach? Do I stand for something? Do I stand against something? Does it include a certain group or does it exclude a certain group, and why? As you start to ask these questions, just simply based off of the positioning statement, you will start to develop the cornerstones of what I refer to as a brand house. And a brand house looks a little bit like this. Is essentially you come up with a very large idea, right? Doesn't matter what your idea is. It could be Thundercoats for all dogs. The idea here is not just Thundercoats, it's Thundercoats for all dogs, all shapes and sizes, any dog in any situation, right? Then you go into sort of a brand strategy. What are you trying to do? You're trying to provide a soothing, wearable jacket for nervous dogs. Okay, seems easy enough. Now, what is your brand personality? Are you human? You're optimistic? You're approachable? Maybe you can be fun, energetic, also approachable. You can sort of play around with what it is your tone, what your voice at this stage of the brand house is going to be. This helps you start to narrow down, okay, when I build a website using WordPress, or I am speaking out inside of my social channels and networks, what tone, what voice do I want to use? Do I want to feel funny, or do I want to feel serious and like caring, right? These are the sort of things that you would start to hash out inside of a brand house, not to be disingenuous, but so that you can remain consistent. That is really what's most important about building a brand house. What's most important about having a brand guideline of any kind is the consistency that you would hold yourself to. It is sort of setting up a discipline, a contract with yourself to say, this is what my brand stands for. This is who we are. And every time we speak publicly, this is how we speak. So the next level here is brand benefits, differentiators. Again, this kind of goes into the positioning, but essentially, what are the things that as you talk about your product or your service, you want to make sure ring true every single time you say something? So in this particular case, what I have here is like, oh, we have a bunch of unique designs. And our reason to believe is the fact that we have a bunch of customizable patterns. We have a bunch of pre-made designs, and we can sell to small dogs and large dogs, right? Reasons to believe that unique designs, when I say we have unique designs, these are the three core reasons to believe that, because these are the things that we have, right? Locally sourced. These are from wolf farmers in Ohio. These are from textile plants in Chicago. Things along those lines. For again, if you think that this particular value prop makes sense for your targeted audience, locally sourced could be very important. And then these are the reasons to believe that. Vet approved. Yes, we build all of these things and it's all great. Dogs love it, but also the vets say, yep, this is absolutely going to help with their nervousness. It absolutely does address their anxiety in such and such ways. And these are the vets that back it up, right? So when you're building a brand house, again, I go back to, you can take two approaches to this. Options. Your approach could be very product focused, right? Which is very much so, our product does this, and these are the differentiators of that product, and we stand by it. Mercedes is very good at doing this. Now, of course, we know Mercedes, luxury brand, all that kind of good stuff, but they back it up with the performance of their engine. I'm not, a huge Mercedes fanboy, but I know Mercedes is a strong performing vehicle, right? There is a product aspect to that, and then there's also the brand aspect, which brings me to the very last section of this brand house, which is the messaging points. You have brand level messaging. Something like Thundercoats is the only vet-approved clothing line for dogs designed to temper anxiety and keep them calm in any situation. Very brand level. Brand level being, we've decided to anchor on the vet-approved, right? It's not so much detailed into like the product itself, but more so saying, hey, there's a sense of expertise that sort of protects this brand. There's a sense of expertise that recommends this brand. If the experts recommend it, it must be good, right? The classic 9 out of 10 dentists approve this toothpaste sort of situation. And then there's product level, right? Which is, again, more zeroing into what are the speeds and feeds that someone may care about, your target audience may care about. So in this case, it's like built with locally sourced materials. Thundercoats is comfortable, comes with patented quick click technology for easy fastening and removal. This is for someone who's like, look, I don't really care about what the vet says. Can I put it on easily? Awesome. Is it comfortable? Is my dog going to like it? Okay, cool. Sounds good to me. And you can go to market saying, okay, we're for certain audiences, we're going to talk very strongly about the product itself. We're going to zero in on just how good this product is and the technical speeds and feeds. And if that's kind of where you start to see more traction, more customers engaging with that type of content, that's the direction your brand is going to start to lean. You start to become an expert. You start to speak strongly about those features. If you start to see that content consumption is leading more towards brand level, high level expertise content, then perhaps that's more where your brand starts to lean. More at the, such and such vets really like this. Here's a case study of a dog who had absolutely terrible anxiety. He was, at a vet in Chicago, and this vet basically utilized one of our Thundercoats. And after 2 weeks, no more shaking, whatever. But the bottom line is you can start to lean in that direction if you see your content being consumed more greatly on the brand level versus the product level. Now, this is the fun part. So designing your brand identity. This is where many people technically start here. And I understand why. I mean, I would want to start here too. This is the visual aspect of your brand, right? The fonts, the colors, the imagery. This is where you get to kind of talk about what really is the feel of your brand. Is it fun? Is it elegant and elevated? Is it professional? Is it practical? Down to earth, hometown, all that kind of good stuff. So you see 3 different images on the right-hand side here. It's like I could choose illustration. It doesn't have to necessarily be a live action photo. I could choose a very stylized sort of portrait, oil painting, if you will, of what these Thundercoats might look like on your dog. Or I can literally take real pictures of people wearing Thundercoats or real dogs wearing Thundercoats and put them out in the wild, right? This is the sort of thing that, although it is fun, you'll want to have a strategy for. As you build out a website, as you build out any sort of identity, whether you're using Instagram or Facebook or any sort of social media platform where there's a visual component, I personally recommend, especially if you're just getting started with building your brand, A/B testing, right? Maybe have some illustrations and then let those run for a few weeks, or in a true A/B, you let them both run for a few weeks, some illustrations versus some live action, some oil painting versus some videos, like things along those lines, and then gauge to see what your visitors are really engaging with if you're just getting started. If you have an established brand and you already know, like, this is the look and feel, this is the voice and tone of the brand, awesome. All you then need to make sure you have is truly a brand guide. Because again, I will say this multiple times, and it's kind of on purpose, consistency is key. When building a brand, you must remain as consistent as possible. It's not to say that you don't evolve, but you want to be consistent, because that recall, the recognition, the memorability of your service, your company, your person, all go into building that brand identity. So the more memorable you are, obviously, the more people identify your brand, more brand equity you create. But if you're constantly changing in how you talk and how you respond and how you look and how you feel, it's very hard to establish in any visitor or consumer's mind, who are you really, right? What is the actual emotion you want me to walk away with when I interact with your brand? If you're all over the place, you become very not memorable at all. You start to just sort of blend in with the noise of your chosen industry. So what we have here are some examples of strong branding, and we've seen all of these before, but we'll talk just very briefly on what actually makes these strong brands. And again, I don't have any particular, bias or favor. Granted, I am wearing an Apple Watch, but still, that's neither here nor there. What we know about Apple, you ask anybody, yes, they have an advanced feature set. They really like to come out with the latest and greatest. You talk to anybody who loves Samsung, they'll be like, well, latest and greatest 2 years ago. But the bottom line is like Apple is known for having an advanced feature set. They lean heavily into that product aspect of their brand. Intuitive user interfaces. Anyone who's on a MacBook Pro versus a PC would tell you very, very cleanly that, look, I love the MacBook because I turn it on and it just works. I don't really need to do much of anything. Intuitive user interface also for the iPad versus any other tablet I've ever used. I'm not pitching Apple. I'm just saying it's what they're known for. They have sleek packaging. Now, this goes back to the packaging discussion we had, or I brought up earlier. A tablet is a tablet. I will say that. They get online, they have apps, you can type things on them, you can send messages, you can record stuff, all that kind of good stuff. But when you get an iPad, you feel that box. There's some weight to it. The way it slides off, all that kind of stuff. Now, that is physical packaging, and that is not feature packaging. I know that that's what I'm talking about. But the thing is even that goes into their branding. When you get something from Apple, the very package, the physical box that you receive feels very different than any other technology provider that is currently out on market today. It just feels different. That is something that they have spent a lot of thought into, as well as their product designs. We all know that an iPhone looks a little bit different than every other phone out there. They've even patented the curvature of the phone itself. State Farm. The reason why I have this here is because of the memorable slogan, right? Someone says, like a good neighbor, your brain immediately finishes the rest of that sentence. Strong branding. This is not, and the reason why I bring this up is because when you really think about insurance, they're all fairly similar, right? I mean, you're going, depending on what the price points are and all that kind of good stuff, you're choosing the red insurance company, the green insurance company, the one with a gecko, or the blue insurance company. They're all going to give you a hard time when you call them if something's wrong. So bottom line is just pick your favorite. But the thing is I like State Farm's humorous commercials. That's why it always kind of sticks out of my brain. That's why I've had them here as a strong brand to sort of call out here. I've already mentioned Mercedes. We know it. Premium luxury lifestyle. That's really what they're trying to sell here. That's what you feel when you buy a Mercedes. You sit down in that car, you put your hand on the steering wheel. Look, it's a car. It's going to get you to A to B, if we're being honest with yourselves. But there's something about your lifestyle that suddenly just feels elevated. And that's because that's what they told you that you're supposed to feel when you're driving one of these bad boys. They are known for high performance. That is absolutely a product level brand anchor point for them. They are, one of the premier F1 teams, all that kind of good stuff. They're in all of that stuff. But the bottom line is high performance is what they're going to anchor on, because they need, although they've told you this is luxury, they also need you to feel it and believe it when you use their product. Feature-rich utility. You get inside of a Mercedes, it has all the bells and whistles. They definitely anchor on this. Yeti is the last one I call out here, mainly because of the consistent product performance, durable designs and materials, and the versatile product portfolio. Anybody who uses Yeti likes to talk about Yeti, and they're all very heavy and durable products. I would say that for Yeti specifically as a brand, what they anchor on really is more towards, again, the product size, but it is the consistency that I think carries the entirety of the brand. You don't buy one and suddenly your ice is melting 2 hours later, right? That is what they said. You buy one of these things, your ice it stays cold for a very long time. It does. Your coffee stays hot for a very long time. It does. It is the consistency that you get with this brand, and therefore people are willing to pay the extra, despite the fact that there are tons of coolers and tumbler companies out in the world today. So that was all on just what is a brand, how to think about building a brand, how to think about what really goes into it, what is the importance of one, right? And again, I anchor on memorability. Who are you? Needs to be who you want your brand to be, needs to be established by you. And I recommend starting with a positioning statement. But truly, to be memorable is one of these situations where consistency is going to be your biggest friend. It doesn't matter 100% where you start, so long as you are consistent and you start to observe the results of your consistency. If you started off funny and you stayed consistent with being funny, and your audience told you, hey, you're actually not all that funny, cool. Now you can begin to evolve into maybe something that's a little bit more serious, right? Or vice versa. But the thing is you will never know this unless you have remained consistent for a period of time to establish that brand identity, to then realize that either a pivot is needed or a double down is needed. Now we will go into how do we use WordPress to help us with all of this. So right off the bat, I think we mentioned this in the beginning. WordPress has for a long time been known for blogging. Blogging is an aspect of keeping your brand strong. Blogging is an aspect of establishing a brand. But building an actual website to leverage as your sort of flagship, right? That is, I would say, the power of WordPress in this conversation. WordPress would provide a fully functional website, whether that be a store, whether that just be a website for the sake of like saying, hey, come on down to Chris's Catfish Cabin, and I'm just trying to drive some foot traffic, right? The bottom line is like, I need a flagship. And the reason why I say this is because recently, in the past 5 or 6 years, social media has obviously taken over. It's very prolific. It's everywhere, right? You absolutely need a presence on social media. But if you're trying to establish a brand, how much of your brand is really being governed by whatever presence you have on social media? And what I mean by that is, how much control do you really have as people are scrolling through Instagram, as people are scrolling through Facebook? The brand that is most prominent in those apparatuses on those platforms is Instagram, is Facebook. That is the brand that is being consumed. Your brand is just one of many voices scrolling past. A flagship is your website where you would say, I now control the look, the feel, the colors, the messaging, the voice, the tone. I control everything here, and I will use social media as a tool to pull them here. We'll get into that a little bit later. But the bottom line is one of the things that WordPress helps out the most is essentially just creating this flagship. So first step, choose the right WordPress theme. Find something that is easy to navigate. Choose between a minimal style or a bold style, right? So on the right-hand corner here, you can see upper right-hand corner of this smaller picture, very, very light, airy, minimal words, versus down in the bottom left, dark, bold hero image, sort of just, this is who we are. This is what I'm going to talk about sort of situation. When we talk about establishing a brand, what type of brand are you? Do you want to have a very bold sort of a stance, very bold, in your face, bombastic sort of look and feel, or are you soft, approachable, right? You have to basically come to that decision on your own. Colors and fonts. Inside of WordPress, of course, once you choose your theme, one of the very first questions you're going to be asked is, what colors and fonts do you want, right? Now, you can make these decisions at a global level, which I personally recommend because it establishes consistency right off the bat. Or you can do it at the local level. And what that really means is page by page by page, you can choose what colors and fonts you want. I don't recommend that because it leads to the potential for, like, on any given Sunday, it's like, you know what? Pink really does go with fuchsia. And it's like, it really doesn't. But sure, do you. The bottom line is consistency is key. I will continue to say it. I would recommend usually starting with something probably a little bit more minimal, and absolutely using global settings when picking out your WordPress theme. The reason why I say this is because, in my opinion, when you pick a theme that is a little bit softer, you can ease into the bold. You can ease into how strong you want some of those colors and images to be, versus you just pick a theme that's like, yo, we're going for it. It may be too much for certain pages. So, customizing WordPress. You've chosen your theme. You kind of know where you want to go. The next sort of phase of this is like, all right, now what pages do I want? What images do I want? How easy is it for me to continuously update my content? Things along those lines. First of all, I'd say if you're really looking to build a brand, some kind of logo. It could literally be the name of it could be your name. It could be the name of your company, whatever, but in some sort of stylized, fashion. Coca-Cola, classic example of that. But the bottom line is, it's like, have a logo, just something that can stick in people's mind, so that when they receive your merchandise, when they start watching one of your YouTube videos, this symbol can kind of pop up and they're like, yes, I am in fact watching Chris's Catfish Cabin, right? Anything along those lines, like, just have a logo. Use an online logo maker. They're super easy to find. They're all over the place. A lot of them have free services, or hire a professional. This is also a viable option. There are many graphic designers out there. Some on Fiverr.com. Don't recommend those ones, but hey, some of them are pretty good. Or go to one that's like literally an agency, and they will absolutely build you a logo pretty quick. Again, asking you questions on what is the look and feel, what is the vibe of your brand, and then they will generate a variety of logos for you to look through. Creating pages. I will say, and I should point out, WordPress makes it really easy. Once you have a logo, super easy to upload your logo to the website. It's not difficult whatsoever. There's a whole section for it. Creating pages is where most of our customers get stuck, or anyone using WordPress usually gets stuck. What I will start with is one of the number one things that sort of get in the way of building out these pages is the fact that you're stuck with sort of like a blinking cursor, right? A blank page that says, okay, new page. What do you want to say? And you're just kind of sitting there like, all right, who am I? Who am I? And you go into sort of this trance, right? Embrace block editing. There is nothing wrong with block editing. Bluehost just launched a thing called Wonder Blocks. I'm not trying to pitch it. I'm just saying this new thing called Wonder Blocks. Basically, you tell us what your website is about, and we will give you blocks that are already visually stylized for what your website is about. We've also even given you some content that you can start from. It's not even a blank page with a blinking cursor anymore. It's like, here are the blocks that would literally live on your web page. You can see what it would actually look like on that web page. And at a glance, get a sense, is this the brand I want to build? Is this the look and feel? Are these the right colors? Are this the right tone? In a few seconds, you can literally just look at your page and say, all right, yeah, no, this is the direction I want to go. The thing that I will harp on here is, do not be afraid of block editing. It is not just, cookie cutter templates and, oh, I have to use it this way. Move those things around the page. Take components of the block out if you want to. All that kind of good stuff. The bottom line is we are past the age of having to start with a blank page. It didn't mean for that to rhyme, but it did. So the bottom line is absolutely embrace it. It will take you so much further in building a brand, because within seconds you're like, yep, this is the right color. This is the right look and feel. As my visitors get to my website, this is what I want them to see as a representation of what I'm trying to say to the world. Classic. This is just good old fashioned, like, hey, make sure you build a good website. Good content is your number one goal. While building a brand, have something to say, right? Have something interesting to say, have a interesting voice, an engaging tone, all that kind of good stuff. I know that sounds, like common sense, but the thing is, it does take a little bit of work to say, if I were saying this out loud to someone, would they be interested in my conversation, right? If the answer there is no, then revise it. It's not worth your time to put something on your website that is not going to be engaging. So good content is your number one goal. Functionality wise, of course, have a clear navigation and CTAs, which are known as call to actions. Right side of this page is like, look, if you're selling something, have buttons that literally say, buy now, start today. What do you want your customer to do? That is the call to action. So regardless if it's, hey, I just put out a new video, I want you to watch it, view now, right? Have interesting imagery. Do not shy away from leveraging videos. Again, if you're trying to establish a brand, engaging with your customers, engaging with your visitors and your audience is your number. It's paramount. You have to do that if you want to establish a brand. Video is one of your best friends there. In that particular case, what you would do is probably have a video series of some sort that they would keep them coming back for more, so that, again, you are establishing that recognition, that recall, that memorability to build a brand equity. And I absolutely leverage social media plugins. Your brand extends beyond just your website. I said it a little while ago. Your website is your flagship, but your brand is more than just the website. Your brand is what do you say out into the world? How are you perceived in the world, right? Social media, it's not going anywhere. You absolutely need to leverage it. But when you leverage it, make sure, once again, you stay consistent in your messaging, your look, and your feel. Whatever logos you've established, whatever color schemes you've built on your flagship, make sure that those translate out inside of the social media sphere, if you will. I already said most of this, but the bottom line is use social media to drive brand awareness. Use social media to drive traffic to your website. There is a methodology. There's a mentality. I'll go with that. There's a mentality that, like, all I need is Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and I can establish a brand. I'm not saying that's not true. You maybe could, right? It's going to be a lot more difficult because, again, the brand that is actually being consumed there is Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, right? Your brand would benefit greatly from a flagship, from something that you directly control. So in this particular methodology, it's saying leverage social media as a tool to drive to your flagship. Your website will convert your visitors into customers. Your website helps you also manage existing customers to bring them back for more. Again, it doesn't have to be that you're selling a product to bring someone back and then manage a customer account. It could truly just be like, hey, here's all the things you recently viewed, right? Have some reason for your customer to come back, but think about social media as a tool to drive them here in the first place. Classic example, great plugin to leverage for this would be something like Jetpack Social. If you have a WordPress website, you could easily install Jetpack. Jetpack Social is an extension on top of that. Essentially, whatever it is you post on your WordPress website immediately gets posted across your social media networks as you've established. All of that helping you remain consistent. If you say it once, you say it now multiple times, but in the same consistent way. Now, I will go very quickly through SEO because we have a whole series on SEO, and I'm not going to belabor the point, but it should be known that SEO is incredibly important for anyone building a brand because SEO is important for just being found online. When you think about SEO, think about it very simply, right? Because it can get very complicated. Essentially, write content that matches the intent of your website and the visitors. What they are searching for should be very relevant to what it is that you are writing. So create content that is relevant to your purpose and what they are actually looking for. That's really all that is. If I'm looking for, anxious dog coats, I better make sure that as I'm writing my website, I put in the words anxious. These are coats for anxious dogs, right? Make that connection as just the very starting point of SEO. Consistency in your targeted keywords, kind of touched on this. As you are writing, as you are creating your content, what are your targeted keywords? What are the things that you want to say? If it's anxious dogs, if it's comfortable coats, if it's, thunderstorms / dogs, whatever it is your keywords are, do the research, find out how much those keywords are actually searched at the global level, and then write your content towards it. Develop a strong link strategy. What this really means is like, inside of your website, make sure you link to other pages on your website. That is an SEO sort of 101. And again, not going to get into the details of it. We have a whole SEO webinar on this, but basically make sure that you are referencing your other pages as you build out your website in some capacity, right? So this could be like, hey, I have a main website. I also have a blog. Learn more if I'm on my homepage, learn more on our blog, and then you link to your blog. That's one example of, internal linking. External linking. This one's harder to do, especially if you're just getting out the gate. Essentially, this is other publications. Say, for example, your Thundercoats gets, featured on the news. All of a sudden, Thundercoats is now being linked from like abcnews.com or something like that, right? The more that happens, the stronger your SEO strategy or the stronger your SEO becomes, right? Your website is beginning to rank higher because you're now being referred from outside websites specifically for the content that people are going to be looking for. So if Thundercoats was suddenly, hit a Good Morning America, and now there's an article on Good Morning America, but then that article also got picked up by a bunch of substations, right? That's definitely going to boost the SEO of my flagship website. This is a very easy one to get through. Again, not going into all the details. Classic question: does WordPress really help boost SEO? The answer is actually yes, and the answer is more nuanced than just simply saying yes. If you use WordPress, your SEO is just better. Here's why: WordPress offers a wealth of functionality out of the gate. Right? You can edit your title tags, you can edit permalinks, you can edit meta tags in the descriptions, on-page optimizations for like literally how your image is loading, things along those lines are all directly inside of WordPress. Of course, you can set up internal linking and naturally leverage an SEO plugin like Yoast, which would absolutely, as you are typing your content, let you know if your content is SEO optimized. So I'm, again, not going to belabor this. There's a whole other series that talks about this, but to answer the question, yes, and here's why. Best practices, I've already kind of mentioned this, but essentially leverage a tool like Yoast to check your SEO scores while you're creating a page. On the right-hand side of this slide, this is kind of what what Yoast actually looks like as you are writing. So this is inside of your page selection or your page section. And as you're typing things out, it's like, hey, cool. This is what your Google search response is going to look like. This is how readable your website is, all of these sort of things. Even the social tab would say this is what it would look like on Facebook. So again, not to belabor the point, but the bottom line is if you're really concerned about SEO, as you are creating your content, check it in real time. Next. So SEO is a way to market. It is a form of marketing. It's just basically good content strategy, but there are other peripheral ways to market your brand. Again, leveraging WordPress. I mentioned this a little while ago, but adding a blog to your website for ongoing updates, very smart. I won't say it's if you don't do this, you're never going to have a brand. I'm just saying it's very smart. The reason why is because you stay consistently engaged with your audience in this way. You're constantly pumping out, or at least reliably pumping out content, right? Whether this be video content, whether this be audio content, if you have a podcast, right? Or if it really is written content, having some sort of content marketing strategy that keeps your audience engaged, again, goes back to creating that recall, building the recognition, which all leads into brand equity. Email marketing, we've all done this one. I would say you should leverage a plugin like Creative Mail to build email campaigns. This is if I'm running a store, someone's in my cart, like, I got to go pick up the kids from school, right? They leave the cart. Email marketing campaign says, hey, don't forget you left all this stuff in your cart. When they get back home, like, oh yeah, that's right. Engaging the recall, the recognition, and then of course helping with the purchase, right? All leading back to that. Email marketing in the sense of newsletters. I'm a first-time visitor to your website. I kind of like your vibe. You're kind of hilarious in this first video. Hey, would you like to sign up to learn, the next time I post? Oh yeah, actually I would. Cool. Email marketing. That's basically how you start to bring the recall back. Social media, stay active on the platform if you're going to choose to use it. It helps you stay relevant. It helps you stay present. Again, use consistent messaging, use consistent tone. A lot of companies, a lot of brands, let me jump to the next one because it actually kind of goes into this. I'm not going to say get themselves in trouble, but this is one of the tripping points for keeping a brand consistent. It is essentially when they communicate on social media, whether it be Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, even in some cases, even email outreach programs, they either go with a different tone or they're speaking as if they are actually like a personal response, right? That begins to degrade the brand in two ways. One, it is inconsistent. So now you have visitors who could potentially see this post and say, well, that's not how they actually talk. That's not how they are. That's not something I want to be associated with, right? And then secondarily, it brings into, it's sort of, for lack of a better word, it sort of pulls away the curtain and you see the person behind the curtain, right? And we are all human. We are all people. We're the ones behind all of this. But unless your brand is very personalized, unless your brand is very like, hey, we're going to have a one-on-one conversation, you should speak in your chosen brand voice. Whatever it is that you decided in your brand house, that is your guideline. That is the contract that you have made with yourself. Stay consistent there, because this is where one of the tripping points in the social apparatus, where we suddenly just like, we're sitting on our couch, we're running this brand, and now we're responding to someone with our thumbs. Sometimes our personal brand comes out when we're not speaking on the behalf of Thundercoats, or we're not speaking on the behalf of Chris's Catfish Cabin. I'm gonna keep saying it because it's hard to say. So just keep in mind that engaging with your customers is super beneficial. It is absolutely a way to continue to build and grow a brand. It is also a potential pitfall if done incorrectly. Lastly, adding a store to your website. I'm just going to throw this in here because if you have a brand, and especially if it's becoming an established brand, it makes sense to sell merchandise of some sort. It keeps your customers coming back for more. It boosts brand awareness. You can have gift cards so customers can share them with others. If you have some sort of service that can be booked for appointments, you remind them of their appointments. Maybe they bring their friend along. Maybe they send their friend to also get their nails done, whatever. You can create customer accounts so that visitors continue to come back and check in, check on their order status, or log in to see, when's the next video coming out. You can create promotions that definitely bring people back, like buy one, get one free shipping, things along those lines. Essentially, when you add a store to whether it be a website or a blog, right, you have now created a new channel to engage with your audience, and a channel which they can engage with you as well. It's not just monetarily either. They will come back to see what other merch you have, or they will come back to buy a gift for someone else, right? So adding a store is also a great way to build a brand, because it just sort of gives you another channel, another arm to your business. Now, you have done all of this work. You have built a brand house, considered your positioning, come up with funny jokes, right? Done all of these things, did the hard work of creating a flagship website, and then also attaching it to Twitter and Instagram and Facebook and all this stuff. You've done it, and now people are definitely talking about you. You're starting to trend a little bit, all that kind of good stuff. One of the worst things you could possibly do is once you've established this brand and people know you, people know what you're about, what you're not about. What you don't want to have happen is your investment completely fall apart. So now you need to protect your brand or website. In this particular regard, we will talk about WordPress. Protecting your brand goes a little bit beyond just the capabilities of WordPress and the plugins that you can put there. Protecting your brand goes into some of the things I was mentioning earlier, like, staying consistent inside of your brand guidelines, making sure that if anyone speaks on the behalf of your brand, they understand those brand guidelines. And if anyone speaks ill of your brand, maybe not even internally, that you can address that in some way, shape, or form that is still within your brand guidelines, right? Though all that into protecting your brand is a little bit on the peripheral of just your website. So for the sake of this, we will talk about just the website. Backups are absolutely needed. If you've done all of this work and something happens to your website, you will have to do all of that work again. So back it up. Easy plugin, again, comes with most WordPress websites, Jetpack. Real-time backups, whatever you change, whatever image, whether or not you are A/B testing your dog, do different images of your dog, cool. Jetpack's like, awesome. I got A variant, I got B variant. They're both here. You'll be able to get those back in the event something were to happen. Malware, data protection, this is a must. Bottom line is for everything we build, there was someone trying to tear it down, unfortunately. So malware protection, data protection in the form of like site lock, fix, and prevent. It's basically if someone's trying to intrude, if someone's trying to inject your database with malware of any kind, site lock will find it, it'll detect it, and on certain plans will actually correct it and they'll let you know, hey, by the way, we corrected this thing. SSL certificates basically protect your traffic. It's essentially an encrypted channel. So like if I am selling something and I'm giving you my credit card information, someone can't just sit there on the open network and say, oh, there goes that credit card information. I'm in an encrypted channel that data is being passed through in a very secure way. Automated updates, really what I mean by this is like WordPress is always an evolution, right? It is the largest CMS in the world. It is, just infinitely flexible. As a result, it must continuously be updated. The one thing you don't want to do is be on an outdated version of it. Most of the updates are security updates. They are absolutely trying to patch things that people have found and all that kind of good stuff. If you just simply have your automated WordPress updates on, you don't really need to worry about it. You're always going to be on the latest version, the most secure version. You'll be fine. One thing I recommend is also make sure that you enable this for your plugins. So any plugins that you're using on the peripheral of WordPress, make sure that those are also turned on for automated updates so that, any security breaches that should have been plugged are plugged. Automatically, you don't need to worry about it. Most hosting providers, Bluehost included, will do this for you. You sign up on any WordPress plan on Bluehost, automated core WordPress updates are there. If you're using our core feature set of plugins, those are also updated. Anything on the peripheral that you go finding out, like, Jim Bob's backup service, you would need to make sure that you update that. But the bottom line is automated updates are pretty much out of the box at this point in time. Keeping your site performing fast. This is important for a lot of reasons. Again, your brand will suffer if they get to your website and it's really slow to load and they can't engage with any of your content, right? Especially if it's like a video website. They get here and the videos take forever to load. They're not coming back. The only thing they're going to recall about your brand is that it's a slow website, right? In this particular regard, what you're going to want to make sure is that you have, in fact, chosen a reliable hosting provider that enables caching, that has a CDN available for you, that you're on the right plan. I think this is also another thing that's important to call out. Many hosting providers try, they obviously go to market with a very low entry cost, right? It's like, $199, $299, all that kind of good stuff. Depending on the website you are building, choose the right plan for you. If you know you're going to have a lot of videos, if you're trying to build a brand that's going to have a lot of returning visitors, like a store where people are coming back to check their orders, look, don't go for the $299 offer. You'll want to go with something that absolutely has the power and resources that you're going to need to put your brand upon. I don't know how many times I've had the conversation. It's like, I'm trying to build this brand out. We're blowing up. We just had a Good Morning America moment. Like, congratulations. Why are you paying $2 for something that cannot handle a Good Morning America moment? Pay for the performance that you absolutely need. It's like saying, like, well, I want to make sure that my coffee stays warm inside of my car, but the Toyota Corolla just ain't doing it. I'm like, yeah, the Mercedes is what has the cup warmer. Get the Mercedes. Use tools like lazy loading. This will basically help. Again, this is all native to WordPress. And there's plugins that definitely help boost it up. But essentially what this helps is if you are a visually heavy brand, as a customer scrolls, the images load as the customer is now, it's coming within the customer's viewport, right? Instead of trying to load everything out all at once and then, of course, slowing down your website. These are just some very, broad recommendations to increase your site performance in the context of why is it important to your brand. Memorability, consistency, performance, things all along those lines are all going to be associated with your brand when your visitor and your customers interact with you. So this is one way that if you're building a website on WordPress for the sake of building a flagship for your brand, this is one way to help protect and maintain that. In conclusion, you'll want to build a brand that matches the emotions of your customers, the look and feel that you want to convey. Know who they are. Know what their problem is that you're trying to solve and how that problem makes them feel. It'll be very easy to then establish a brand house associated with that. Do not be afraid to create a website to act as a flagship to carry your message. Again, the look and the feel and everything else that you want to build, you're in full control over that on your own website versus just only leveraging social media. Create engaging and relevant content for SEO and use tools to help you optimize it. Again, not going to belabor the point, but the bottom line is you should write content for your website that is relevant to what it is you want your visitors to interact with. So, if you're selling thunder coats for dogs, let's not talk about coffee. Use social media to drive brand awareness and traffic. Again, think of it as a tool, not as your end all be all for the entirety of your brand. Build peripheral marketing campaigns to keep visitors engaged. These are things like content marketing, email campaigns, host a Reddit AMA, like all these kinds of things. Don't be afraid to talk with people. Just remain consistent when you do. Make sure you are speaking from your brand voice. Add a store to boost customer retention and recall. So this is, again, not everybody needs to do this, but it's a smart idea if you want them to keep them coming back. And then lastly, protect your investment with backups and security tools. You spent a lot of time on this. It'd be really silly to just let it sit there and get dusty. That is all I have. Thank you so much. Devin, do we have any questions in the chat?
All right, I apologize. It took me a second to find the unmute button, but thank you so much. That was incredible, super informative, super helpful. A lot of people really enjoyed that. We do have a short amount of time that we can try to answer a few questions, not a lot of time though. So let's just jump right into it. I aggregated a couple questions here. How can we measure the effectiveness of our brand building efforts? What are some key performance indicators that we can use for tracking brand growth?
All right, it's a good question. I always lean back on like sort of the standard web traffic tools like Google Analytics, Adobe Analytics, or even Jetpack has an analytics function to it. What that will do is give you sort of a sense of your return visitors, right? You'll get a sense of who are your first-time visitors coming to your website, but then it'll also sort of break that and say, hey, who's returning, right? Who are your existing customers? That is typically a strong indicator of brand recognition and recall. And I know I keep saying that phrase, but I mean, if people are coming back, they know you and they remember you. I would also monitor your social media mentions and tags. So if you do have like a business account on Instagram or things along those lines, see if you're trending. See if more and more people are starting to share the content that you've put on your social media through your social media channels.
I like it. Any WordPress plugins or tools that can help automate the brand building process?
Yeah, so I mentioned Jetpack a little bit earlier in this, and Jetpack Social specifically is still what I recommend. But honestly, it's anything that you can use to sync up with social media. And I say sync, that's the word I'm going to use here, because what you do on WordPress, whether it's a blog or whether you're uploading new content, why not just do it one time and then just cross-pollinate immediately. So you have tools like Smash Balloon, you have Add to Any, which is basically any kind of content that you were to put onto your website. There's like a little share button, and then your visitors can immediately share to their own Twitter and share to their own Facebook or Instagram, right? Small things like that go a long way when sort of automating and streamlining, your brand message across multiple channels.
Awesome. Well, I know we're almost at time. I'm going to advance the slide to this one if anyone needs any additional help. And if you can finish on this question, what are common mistakes or pitfalls to avoid when building a brand?
Yeah. So I may have mentioned this a few times, but I mean, essentially, if you don't establish a firm brand guideline, and if you're being inconsistent, that's going to be your number one. That's the number one pitfall, right? You have to stay in your voice. You need to stay in the tone and the feel so that the perception of your brand is reliable to your customers. At the very least, they know what to expect when they interact with you. I would say specific to WordPress, make sure that, and I said this a little bit earlier, but like when you build your new pages, like let's say you've built your first 5 pages on your website. When you build new pages, stay consistent in that as well, right? Don't change the colors and the fonts and the look and the feel of like the new pages. This goes to your emails. This goes to even the ads you put on social media, or maybe when you do add a store, use the same colors, use the same font, use the same voice and the tone. And if you do, it's the lack of consistency that really makes a brand fall apart. When you go to any of the brands you know and you love, you already know how they're going to treat you, right? Whether that be from a customer service standpoint or like literally the visual standpoint. It's that level of consistency that sort of gives us all a sense of security. It's like, oh no, I know when I go to Disney, I'm going to have a great time because they always fill in the blank. And that's really what you're looking for.
Love it. Awesome. Well, I know that we're at time, so thank you so much for stopping by today. Really appreciate you teaching us how to build a brand on WordPress, and hope this was educational and informative for everyone that tuned in. If we didn't have a chance to answer your question, we'll do our best to follow up in an email, and we will be sending out the recording in the next 24 to 48 hours. So thank you all for joining. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.